Texans Swarm! So Mina Kimes keeps on having on guests.
Content machine.
Who kissed the ass of the Houston Texans. And I gotta say, it's making me a little uncomfortable, but I still enjoy it. So Ryan Clark, former Steelers safety, joined Mina for a series called Power Hour. She has people help her rank teams in the NFL. She gives 2 teams, and the guest has to pick who they would rank first and why. The matchup that Mina Kimes gave to Ryan Clark was Ravens against Texans, and Ryan Clark, despite recent history, for some reason, picked the Texans.
I did an NFL Live, not NFL Live, a Sports Center top 3 biggest AFC threats to the Kansas City Chiefs. And at number 1, I had the Houston Texans.
At 1. Wow. So are you going to pick them over the Ravens here?
Yes, I am.
Ooh.
I am picking the Houston Texans over the Ravens.
So picking the Texans over the Ravens.
I can't do it. I'm not there yet.
It's insane to pick the Texans over the Ravens, considering how one-sided both of those games were last year. There was one half, the first half of the playoff game, where the Texans were hanging on for dear life, and it was entirely because their defense actually had a good plan to frustrate Lamar Jackson. Offensively, they did not move the ball week 1. They did not move the ball the last week of the year. I understand that there were some injuries and stuff. Ryan might be guilty of being an ex-Steeler here.
It's the Lamar playoff stuff. I know they beat the Texans, but the failures of the Ravens and Lamar Jackson against the elite teams in the playoffs, I think, always gives people a negative view of this team. I was a negative view of Lamar Jackson and the Ravens for a while. I feel like it's gotten so out of control now. I feel like pro Baltimore Ravens all of a sudden. But you lose Patrick Queen, but you still beat the Texans twice last year. So, call me on December 25th. Call me on Christmas when the Texans win against the Ravens at home and have secured, the number 2 spot in the AFC by winning that game. Then I'm with you. Until then, the Ravens are daddy. Fact.
If it was just the week 1 game, you could, and they just didn't play in the playoffs, Texans lost to someone else in the playoffs, you could hand wave it as well, come on. It's first game, new coach, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new everything. Week 1, you could kind of throw out that game. But then when they play the last game that we've seen the Texans play, and it especially they get kind of choked out like an anaconda just the entire game, you're like, wow, this really is not. Nope, it's only getting worse. Nope. Can they wiggle their way? Nope, they cannot wiggle their way out of this one. And yeah, that's what makes it hard to pick them head to head.
I want to believe Clark here, but more rationale for Clark in this head-to-head between Ravens and Texans from a power rankings perspective. He starts off by talking about the Texans' defense.
Amari Lassiter from Georgia. You add Okuda at another spot in the corner to pair with Derek Stingley, who we watched start to become that ball-hawking corner that you expected. And this defense started to play well toward the end of the season. And to me, Mina, Jalen Petrie wasn't the player last year that he was the year before, right? The year before, he played at an all-pro level. So if he can get his play back to that line we saw his rookie year, Christian Harris seems to be emerging as a superstar at the linebacker position. But now you add Autry. Now you add Danielle Hunter, right, to the other side of Will Anderson Jr. And I think defense now.
It's all about the delivery. Had he started off talking about Derek Stingley or Will Anderson or Danielle Hunter or Danico Autry or Azeez Al-Shaair, okay, he would have been able to Pied Piper me back into Texans dreamland. The problem is he started off with Kamari Lassiter and Jeffrey Okuda.
Yes.
And talked about Jalen Petrie for probably a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's as soon as, you can sell me on Lassiter. You can sell me on the hype, the rookie impact player, not a top 10 guy right away, but Nick Caserio crushed this the draft once again. But you mentioned Okuda, and I'm out. Like I struggle with it because he hasn't been good in the NFL. It's past history. Why does no one bring up CJ Henderson when they have these conversations?
I know.
A top 10 pick in the exact same draft. But he's never mentioned in the way that Okuda is. It makes no sense because you have nothing to base the Okuda argument on. Is the defense improved? Absolutely.
Clark eventually got to the main reason that everyone's into the Houston Texans, which is their offense, while he was on the Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny.
We just talked about the defense, or I just talked about the defense for 2 minutes, and we didn't even get to the fact that they added Joe Mixon. We didn't get to the fact that they added Stephon Diggs, right? You and I were marveling at what this team was able to do against the Cleveland Browns in the first round of the playoffs last year. Now you have more weapons. How are you going to match up with this team with a quarterback that seems to have everything you need to be a franchise guy for the next decade and a half? So for me, they are actually over the Ravens.
I love all this Houston Texans hype. Truly, I do. There's so much of it, though. It is hard to feel comfortable. I'm someone who does not take compliments well, and these are too many compliments for my liking.
Well, so this is where I do agree. The offense with the additions that they have, I think we're overlooking a lot of times when you talk about the Texans season last year, what they were with and without Tank Dell. But so you have Tank Dell back, you have Diggs, you have Mixon. Schultz is there, obviously. Another year of Bobby Sloak, who's hopefully a little bit more intelligent in short yardage and red zone plays when he's calling them. That's where I do believe. Like if the Texans have the hopes, the dreams, the hype, all of it, it's all about CJ and the offense. Like that I can buy into. It's when you try to sell me on Okuda and Ward and Petrie and Lassiter, then I'm like, not so sure.
Same boat. Not same bait. What does that mean?
Is that a Canadian word?
Yeah, I've got Canada on the brain. Do they pronounce their O's A's? Perhaps. They do say A lot.